In this video, I'll be teaching you how to work with your raster and vector graphics in Opentoonz for your 2D animation. So whenever you're working inside Opentoonz, we'll have the columns, and each of the columns can either be a raster or a vector graphics. Now, I'm going to show you it's either going to be a raster or a vector level. So this level determines the kind of things you can be able, the kind of tools you can be able to work with and what you can do on it. So right here we have over here by default we have just a blank column, and I can be able to create a new column. So the first column I'm going to use is a raster. So we'll have the new toon raster. If you click, you actually see that the toon raster level, and then we also have the raster level and also the toon vector level. So you can be able to actually use any of this. So now what I like using is the raster level and also the toon vector level. So let me start with the raster level. So if I click on the raster level, I can be able to give it any name if I want to, and I can just click OK. Now if you click OK, it will just apply it to this particular column. But if you click on apply, that means you want to apply it and also be able to create more. So if I click on OK, it will just apply it, and now this is a particular raster layer. Okay, but if I decide to make it to, let me change this to raster layer and apply, it means it's going to create a new one, and I can keep on applying and keep on creating more. So you have to know what you're doing. But if you have created the ones you don't want, you can actually come back here and right click, and you can be able to delete that particular column. Right click on it and delete the column. So right now I just have just one column. So let's call this our hill. So once I have this, I'm going to be calling this my hills. So over here, I can be able to work with different things. Now we have not started talking about colors in details, but for now, I'm going to just introduce you to the basics of coloring inside your raster level. So over here, we'll have the brush tool, and the brush tool enables us to be able to paint different things. So right here, we'll have our color here. And the color that we have active is the color black. So we can create a new palette if you want to, so, or a new style of color. So if I click on plus sign now, I can be able to bring this down a bit. Let me bring this one down a bit, and also bring this. You can bring your mouse at the center of this place. When it turns into two arrows pointing in opposite direction, you can click, hold it, and drag it down to make more room for these ones. So now I can be able to change this to, let's say, brown color. So let me say I go for a brown color. You can actually be able to get specific colors using a particular tool here, and this is a tool here, and I will be RGB picker tool. So you can be able to import a particular picture and actually select colors from there. So over here, I'm going to simply show you this. So you see that it's now giving me this. So, but if I want to be able to give it more details, I can actually go over to my raster. Look at here, we'll have the color over here, and we'll have the raster. So the color and the raster, you can mix them when you're working on a raster layer. So over here, I'm going to do something like, let's go get the grass. So if you click on grass, you actually see the thing it's actually doing here. So I want my grass to be green, so but you can go for a middle if you actually have something like this. So probably a sort of brown kind of thing. So we'll have something like this. So let's say, for example, this is part of the place that we're actually working. Now we can go on to create a new one. Let's say we want to have some kind of greeny parts of this in some parts here. So I can just, let me also come up a bit here. And then I'm going to create a new palette here, or a new style. You will call it a style. So I'm going to make this to be my grass this time around. And this grass, I'm going to go to my color, and I'm going to make it to be green in color. So you can actually make it a dark green or a light green, depending on what you're trying to do. So if you actually come in, you can be able to have something like this. So the idea of raster layers is that rasters enable you to be able to paint things in in pixels. You can be able to actually work in pixels. But if you are working with vector, everything is drawn as mathematical equations, so you don't have the leverage of being able to actually work with your pixels. So this is just the kind of thing. If you're doing things like painting a background, your raster layer will be your best bet to give it something very, very realistic and very nice. So now we have this. I'm going to create a new raster layer. So over here, to create a new one, I'm going to, but this time around, I will use a toon raster level. So you actually see difference. So we'll have here a toon raster level, and I'm going to click on OK. Now I have this here at the top here, and I can be able to also paint it. But if you look at my painting right now, you see that I can be able to go over here and get let's say for example, I'm going to get my grass, and you see it's going to have a bit different kind of feel than what we actually had the last time. So if you look at this is just the same thing that we actually did in the raster layer, but it just looks a bit different. So that's just the basic thing you have to know. But if you actually take the same thing and go over to your hills, you see that it has bigger um, things here. So this one is a normal raster, while the other one is the toon raster. So that's just the difference. So basically, the tools you actually use in one place might do something different in the other type of levels. So now let's go on to, I rarely use this particular thing for my work, so I'm going to just leave that as part of the things that we're going to be doing. So I'm going to click on this and just have it do some kind of thing here. Let me make sure that this is my green color. So if you look at now, you can be able to change the color, and the color changes in real time, and that is one of the benefits of your raster, your toon raster layer. So if you actually use this toon raster level, you will actually be able to control it even after you have finished whatever you're doing. It's like a blend of both the vector and the raster. So it's just more like something like that. So you can be able to change the color later. But if you actually go back to the hills and you try to change the color, you actually see that you can't change the color. You can't actually change that particular color. Let's, for example, we go to the grass and we try changing the color of the grass. If we try to change the color of the grass, it's not going to work. The same thing for here, we can't change that. But if you do the same thing for this one, it will actually change itself to whatever you want it to be. So that's basically the difference between your toon raster, the toon raster level, and the raster level. So now let's talk about the vector level. So the vector levels enable you to draw things using the vector graphics, so you can be able to easily scale it, and it will still be crystal clear even when you scale it to any particular size. So now the when we actually select this, okay, now I'm going to just click on OK, and we have a new layer here. Now mind you, whenever you're creating a layer, make sure you select the one at the top if you want it to come to the top. If you want it to come in between this, make sure you select the one here so it comes in between this. So now I have this. Now I will just come in here and call this my toon raster to make it more descriptive, and call this my raster. And here I'm going to call this my vector. For my vector graphics now, I'm going to do a few things. I want to draw a road that will be passing through somewhere here, and then have different graphics that are vector based that I will be using there. So if I come in here, I can just come in here and click on the geometry, and I can be able to get my rectangle. And here in the properties, you actually see that you have other things like the size of the outline. If you want it not to have an outline, you can just reduce it to 0. But if you want it to be thick, you can be able to increase that. And if you want to fill it with a color, you can be able to actually use autofill, and it will fill automatically. If you don't, then let me show you the difference. If you click and drag now, you see something like this. Because of this is the thickness, and also this the autofill is not turned on, so it's just going to give you an empty thing here. Now when you have this, you can still be able to paint it by using this fill and clicking inside and in between it. But let me do Ctrl Z to go back. Now if I don't want to do that, I can simply just select this and I can leave this at that and turn on my autofill and just draw this immediately here. And it will just give me a black thing here. So a black road passing through this whole place. So now I can have this. Now one of the tools you need to use whenever you're working on this is this particular tool here. So I can select this here and I can be able to scale this to whatever size I want. And then I can be able to bring in the other parts of the drawing that I want to use. So let's say, for example, I want to draw some white kind of lines that go through here. I can simply come in here and go to my geometry, and I'm going to create a new palette. And I'm going to leave autofill, and this palette will be a white color. Now I'm going to draw a palette here. So you can either continuously draw it one by one if you want to, or you can actually use this tool here, select it, and then you can scroll and come closer, and you can do Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and you can just bring it to the center here and just start moving it. I'm using my middle mouse button to pan it, all right? And you can do Ctrl C, Ctrl V again. Let's move around and then you get it back again. Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and drop it. Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and just drop it. So if you come out here, you can actually see the way it is. So you can select it and use your arrow keys to align it properly the way you want it to be. Now, if you want to be able to maintain a very good view, and make everything proportional, you can actually go over here in your view and you can turn on your field guide. And once you turn on your field guide, you actually see there is a measurement tool that enables you to be able to put everything to be in line. So I can select distance and put them in line. Make sure that they are spaced properly. And give like 3 spaces in between all of them. So I have something like this, and you can have this. Now we can go back here and turn it off, and this is actually what we'll have right now. So we'll have this here. Now you can actually use this to be scaling this out. And if you want to draw other kinds of design, let's say for example I want to draw a sort of thing here, all right, let's say for example a sort of mountain over here, I can either use a vector layer or also a raster layer, but I'm going to use a vector layer so that I can be able to explore one more kind of tool here. So if I come in here, I'm going to click on my camera because I want to draw something that will be actually behind my raster layer. So now I can just click on the camera, that's the active one, and I'm going to click on now the vector layer, and then I'll click OK. And now it has created a new layer for me. I'm going to call this my let me call this vector hills. So this vector hills, I'm going to use a very simple shape. So this shape here will have the rectangle shape, and then we'll have things like polyline if you want to use that. So I'm going to use the polyline to draw a very simple shape. So I'm going to click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then go back here, click here and just join it. So right now if you look at what is happening, this is actually what we have. Now for us to make it to look a bit curvy, we can be able to just come in here and select this tool here. So I'm going to be introducing you to tools later. So right now we just want to explore the possibilities of the things we could do inside our vector graphics and our raster graphics. So we can just drop this up here, and we can be able to just draw things like here. Let me pull this up like that. You can push this back. So when we have something like this, we can actually change the color. We select it. Now, one of the things you need to know about your vector graphics is that, let's say for example, we'll have this and it's black right now. If you want to change it, you can always make sure you use this tool here, select it, and now any color that we actually use, let's say for example, we'll go for white, you can be able to change it. So I can be able to change this color to, let's say, a brown color. I will also have to bring this down a bit here to be able to actually get the kind of thing I'm looking for. So if you look at now, we have something like this. And this is actually behind. So you can actually make it a bit darker if you want to be able to see the things that you actually have over here. So the last thing I want to do is I want to paint some clouds here, and we're going to actually use a raster layer to be able to do that. So this is just a combination of what you could use whenever you're doing things like raster layer and your vector layers. You can be able to combine them together to create amazing designs. So over here, I'm going to select this, the camera again, and I'm going to use this time around a normal raster layer. But if you want to be able to change it, you can always change it to whatever you want. So the raster layer will do this for us very well. So I'm going to click on this, okay, and I'm going to call this my sky raster. To paint this my sky raster, I'm going to just come here, and now I'll go to my color, and I want to use a blue color, a sky blue color. But this color is not going to be just a normal color. It's going to be a color with, I'll go to my raster and I'll look for a cloud raster. So if I click on a cloud raster, you actually see that when I come in to here, make sure you click on that and select the brush here. So once you select the brush, you can be able to actually paint your cloud, the blue cloud here. So you can be painting it fully here because the layer is actually behind, so it doesn't really matter. So you have something like this. If you want to be able to change, let's say for example, we want to make some parts to be a bit brighter. So you can be able to just come in and still do some stuff on it. So actually make it look like the clouds. And lastly, if we want to be able to put our sun there, we can be able to just come in here. Let's create a new one above it. So we're going to select this sky raster, and we're going to use, this time around, we're actually going to still use a raster for this one. And we're going to call this our sun raster. And for this sun raster, I'm going to create a new material, and I'm going to go to my color. I'm going to use, let's bring it down to a yellow color, and go for my raster, and I will use a glow. Let's search for a glow. So we'll have different raster. When we talk about painting, we're going to be able to explore this. So, but these are the things we could do using our raster layer. So I'm going to come down, and I have my glow here. So if I get my glow, I can be able to say, okay, I want this to be size 3, I can be able to just select this and have something like this. So this is a yellow color, and I can actually go back to the color here and make it to be a sort of bright white and reduce the size here and have this to something like this. So this is an example of the thing we can actually create using a combination of the vector and the raster graphics. If you like my video, do subscribe to my channel and share with your friends, and I will see you in the next video.